Most often, land reform is used interchangeably with agrarian reform. However, in real sense of the word, the latter is much broader than the former. Refers to the improvement of the farmer's relationship to land they cultivate. However, farmers' life means not only till the land because they are part of society. Thus, farmers should be part of community development and nation building. Agrarian reform is concerned with the total development of farmers on economic, social, and political transformation. The agrarian reform is comprehensive. It is defined by the following terms: concept, coverage, and beneficiaries. Concept: it provides not only for land redistribution but also for appropriate support services. It ensures the viability of the beneficiaries as independent small farmer landowners. Coverage: it covers not only private lands but also public and other lands of the public domain which are classified as agricultural regardless of the crops planted and tenurial arrangement. Beneficiaries: both of the farmers and the landowners stand to benefit. The farmers will own the land they till, and the landowners will be the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law of 1988, Public Act 6657, defined as agrarian reform as the redistribution of lands, regardless of crops or fruits produced, to farmers and regular farm workers who are landless, respective of the tenurial agreement, to include the totality of factors and support services designed to lift the economic status of the beneficiaries and all other arrangements alternative to the physical distribution of lands, such as production of profit sharing, labor administration, and the distribution of shares of stocks, which will allow beneficiaries to receive a just share of fruits of the lands they work.
Reform. The fundamental principle behind agrarian reform is social justice. This means democratization of income and wealth by equalizing access to the land and basic productive resources. Agrarian reform is also envisioned to be the foundation for the promotion of agri-industrialization. Another principle being adopted in implementation of agrarian reform in the Philippines is the provision of just compensation to landowners, defined as the full and fair equivalent to property taken away from its owner by expropriation. It also means that fair market values are primarily considered in the land valuation process. Fair market value means the full and fair equivalent of the loss sustained by landowners. Furthermore, the involvement of both the farmer, beneficiaries, and landowners in the planning and implementation of agrarian reform is primordial. Likewise, the full payment of just compensation to landowners of private agricultural lands is a requirement imposed by the Constitution and by the democratic setup under which the agrarian reform is being carried out. Salient features of the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program. On July 22, 1987, the former President Corazon C. Aquino signed the Proclamation No. 131 instituting CARP, or Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program, as a major program of the government, and Executive Order No. 229 providing the mechanism needed for implementing of the said program. With the enactment of Act No. 6657 signed by the President on June 10, 1988, all matters involving the implementation of agrarian reform were governed by the said Act.
Scope, exemption, and exclusion. The Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law of 1998, Republic Act 65557, shall cover, regardless to the tenurial arrangement and commodity produced, all public and private lands as provided in the Proclamation No. 131, dated on July 22, 1987, including, whenever applicable, in accordance with the law other lands of the public domain suitable for agriculture. Specifically, the following lands are covered by the CARP. Government-owned lands devoted to or suitable for agriculture. Number 2, alienable and disposable lands of the public domain devoted to or suitable for agriculture. Number 3, the private lands devoted to or suitable for agriculture regardless of agricultural products raised or that can be raised thereon. Number 4, public domain lands in excess of the specific limits as determined by Congress. On the other hand, land that are exempted from the coverage of CARP included the following: lands actually directly and exclusively used for parks, wildlife, forest reserves, reforestation, fish sanctuaries and breeding grounds, watersheds, and mangroves. Number 2, the private lands actually directly and exclusively used for prawn farms and fish ponds, provided that the said prawn farms and fish ponds have not been distributed and issued certificate of land ownership award or to CARP beneficiaries. Number 3, lands actually directly and exclusively used and found to be necessary.
Acquisition and compensation. For purposes of acquisition of private lands, the following procedures shall be followed. 1. After the landowners and beneficiaries have been identified, the DAR shall send its notice to acquire to the landowners thereof and post the same in a conspicuous place in the municipal building and the barangay hall. Number 2. Within 30 days from the date of receipt of written notice by personal delivery or registered mail, the landowners, his or her administrators or representatives shall inform the DAR of his or her acceptance of the offer. Number 3, if the landowner accepts the offer of the DAR, the Land Bank of the Philippines shall pay the landowner the purchase price of the land within 30 days. Number 4, in case of rejection or failure to reply, the DAR shall conduct summary administrative proceedings to determine the compensation of the land by requiring the landowner, the LBP, and other interested parties to submit evidence as to just compensation for the land within 15 days from the receipt of the notice. Number 5. Upon the receipt by the landowner of the corresponding payment, or in case of rejection or no response from the landowner, upon the deposit with an accessible bank designated by the DAR of the compensation in cash or LBP bonds in accordance with this act, the DAR shall take immediate possession of the land and shall request the proper register of deeds to issue a transfer of certificate of title. Number 6. Any party who disagrees with the decision may bring the matter to court or proper jurisdiction for the final determination of just compensation. The compensation shall be paid in one of the following modes at the option of the landowner. Number 1. Cash payment under 3 categories. A. For lands above 50 hectares, 25%. For lands above 24 hectares and up to 50 hectares, 30%. For lands 24 hectares and below, 35%, all of which the balance is provided to be paid by the government in financial instruments and negotiable at any time. Number 2. Shares of stock in government-owned or controlled corporations. The LBP shall preferred shares, physical assets, or other qualified investments in accordance with the guidelines of the Presidential Agrarian Reform Council. Number 3. Tax credits which can be used against any tax liability. Number 4. LBP bonds which shall have the following features. A. Market interest rates aligned with 91-day Treasury bill rates. And B. Transferability and negotiability. Under the following categories. Number 1. Acquisition of land or other real properties of the government, including assets under the Assets Privatization Program and other assets foreclosed by government financial institution in the same province or region where the lands for which bonds were paid are situated. Number 2. Acquisition of shares of stock of government-owned or controlled corporations or shares of stock owned by the government in private corporations. Number 3. Substitution for surety or bail bonds for the provisional release of accused persons or performance bonds. Number 4. Security for loans with any government financial institution. Number 5, payment for various taxes and fees to the government. Number 6, payment for tuition fees for the immediate family of the original bondholder in government universities, colleges, trade schools, and other institutions. Number 7, payment for fees of the immediate family of the original bondholder in government hospitals. And number 8, such other uses as PARC may from time to time allow. In extraordinary case of inflation, the PARC shall take appropriate measures to protect the economy.
Okay na tayo.